Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and wow, I cannot believe that we are already through the Case Study of Vanitas this quickly. Before we move on to another series and wait for the inevitable and hopeful season 2 of this series, I wanted to go through the 10 volumes of manga that have been published for the Case Study of Vanitas and talk about it with you all because I've had several recommendations asking me to read Jun Mochizuki's work and see the artwork, which I've only looked at volumes 1 through 5 as I'm recording this. It is gorgeous, and I highly encourage you, if you get a chance to buy the manga, if you like the show and you're like, oh, I really think I would like the manga, the artwork, mwah, it is absolutely just chef's kiss. I'm going to be sharing a lot of it with you all as I go through volumes 1 through 5 and just kind of talk through some of the things about it. There are a few little tiny changes that I would like to note that I thought were very interesting. But mainly I just want to go through the manga because at this point, I know that it's going to be a while before we delve into future Case Study of Vanitas things. I've heard the latter half of the season is different a little bit in the manga, so I want to definitely do that next week. But volumes 1 through 5, even though I would say 90% of the series for volumes 1 through 5 is pretty much taken beat for beat for the anime, there are some differences and there's like little nuances, things I want to talk to you about, and that's kind of why I'm making this video. So may not be very long, but I want to go through it and kind of like give you all my thoughts about it before moving on and eventually like rounding out the series before it eventually comes back, hopefully for season 2. I would really like them to do season 2, especially because it ends off without any definitive answers. It's like, it's the opposite of Bunko Stray Dogs. Season 5, they don't give you any definitive answers, and you're just like, okay, well, it leaves itself wide open to open up for a second season. And now that people have said the manga is kicking back up again, I have a feeling that it will take a little while. But hell, there's series that have come back after a decade and are now getting new seasons. So I'm pretty hopeful for this one. I just think it's going to take some time because the mangaka is doing really good work, and it's just going to take time for it to have enough material to be adapted. But I'm patient. There's enough anime to watch in the meantime, right? So before we start this, though, I want to give a special shout out to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon because of patrons like you all, not only in the philanthropy tier, but also for Patreon in general, you all enable me to be able to support Mochizuki and their work and buy the official English translations, which I know a lot of people go off of pirated sites, things like that, but no, I want to, when I can, support the official release and the actual mangaka and buy the official copies. So that's what I've been doing, and I really, really appreciate it. So thanks. So I want to give a special shout out to our philanthropy tier members in this video, to Edgar, to Dana, to Alex Cornejo, to Kiri, to Be Happy, to Shimoyama, to Nameless Monster, to Ashy Got Snow Bitches, to Trails, to Matthew Palfinier, to Goob, to Anna, to Translucent Men, to Sunspots, to Eric, to Anime Annie, and Tyrone. Thank you all so much for all that you do. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. Thanks. So yeah, we're going to just basically go through. I've got some notes that I've wrote down here that I'm going to kind of like go through. And then also I have different images that I want to bring up and talk to you all through for each of the volumes 1 through 5 as we go. Just some highlights. It's basically a highlights reel, the best of reel to talk about this week before we dive into the whatever happens for volume 6 through 10. We'll see, right? But right off the bat, I would say with volume 1, the very first thing that struck out to me is the intricate details of the cover art. The cover art, the covers, the spreads, they're so intricately detailed. They're beautiful. It's just like, it's fashion. It's just all of the frills. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the second thing is the color combinations. There's a lot of blues and purples, not blues and reds like you would think with the Red Moon Vampire and the Blue Moon Vampire. No. Blues and purples, which I think will tie to Noe, to Vanitas, and then to the Shapeless one, as we've seen later on in the anime. But I really love the cover here of Vanitas in the window. The window is actually the one we see in the second cour in the OP, and it's there. I really like that. I like Vanitas's look there. And then, of course, we have, with Noe, him opening up the book, and there's the little Blue Moon Vampire inside the book, which is very interesting, right? To have the white cover with Vanitas and then the black cover with Noe and the little Blue Moon Vampire in the book there. That looks like a cursed bear themselves. So that's the thing. There's still so much mystery with the Case Study of Vanitas, that there's still so much mystery that we don't know and that the season didn't answer. And it has me excited to eventually go back when we get new episodes and new material to see those questions maybe answered. Again, the purples and blues. You have Dante there, you have Vanitas there, you have Myrrh, you have Noe, and you have all the purple and all the blues. So fascinated by what this could mean. I feel like the Archiviste and Bloodline is tied to the color purple, which could be tied to the Shapeless one. Who knows? But I do love the artwork and just how detailed it is, and the color. The use of color is so gorgeous. It gives me very, like I said, I think I said this in the last reaction, Case Study of Vanitas has always reminded me of like if Moriarty the Patriot and Seraph of the End had a baby. And I like both those series, so obviously it's a good combination, but it's really nice. So one thing I want to highlight right from the very beginning is the idea that they bring up that the Blue Moon Vampire, that they hold this book and that they'll be the one to destroy all the vampires. I love right off the bat that Vanitas's smile there, it's this twisted smile, and it kind of hints that he's going to kind of betray the narration. That we think the Vanitas is there possibly to destroy vampires, but he's like, no, I'm going to save you all, as to get revenge on the Blue Moon Vampire, right? I'm going to save you all. But we learn that Vanitas is not a reliable narrator, so it's a nice little initial introduction to that, and we don't even quite realize it. And that's why he says, I am Vanitas. I inherited this book and the name from the Vampire of the Blue Moon, and I am an average human being. That, in hindsight, again, the unreliable narration, we know that Vanitas is not an average human being. They've been bitten by the Blue Moon Vampire. They've been affected by it. Each time they use the book, they become less and less human. So it's just Vanitas lying to us from the start, right? Lying to us from the start. We just don't know exactly what to do with this yet. But because we're just starting the story, we don't know all this. So it's nice foreshadowing that the author just kind of plants there, and you don't really do anything but take it at face value. And then later on, when you find out more, you're like, oh, this is not how it originally was. And then I will save you all without fail. I love this double spread because it's like, yes, Vanitas has said they're going to do things their way, and they're going to save you however way he wants to. But just the way that this page is drawn with the blood splatters and the text, it doesn't look like a reassuring thing when he says, I will save you without fail. It looks like I'm going to destroy you all without fail, right? So Noe just kind of goes, oh, Like it just, the way that it's presented the tone does not match the words, which is so well done, right? And then this double spread, I was instantly like, because where the series leaves off at, we don't know. We don't get to see Ruthven's vow that he makes Noe take. We don't get to see like whatever is happening in the future of Noe killing Vanitas. We don't know. We have no clue. So I want to note here that you have where he says that was the beginning, and you have Jean and Luca. This is the tale of how I met Vanitas and how we walked together. And you see Vanitas, you see Dominique, of all we gained and lost. And we see Loki, who is Luca's brother. We see him with the cuffs and the chain. So at some point, Loki is going to be part of the story and be important. We just don't know in what capacity yet. And how, at the end of that journey, and then we hear who we believe is Vanitas saying, Noe, I won't die, Noe, even if I'm no longer here. So, and we see the long hair. I'm like, is this Vanitas? Like, does something happen and Vanitas's hair gets loose from its little ponytail and it's like surrounding Noe, and does Noe drink his blood? What's happening? Even if I'm no longer here, I would kill him with my own 2 hands. So at some point, Vanitas is supposed to die and Noe is supposed to kill him. And I'm assuming that it's at the point where Vanitas doesn't become, does he use the book to the point like Mihail where he isn't human anymore and Noe has no choice but to kill him? I'm very sad because it seems like it's setting up to have a tragic ending, this story is, and it's so cute and I love it so much. And I'm like, there is a part of me that is accepting. I hate tragic endings. I hate sad endings. I'm like, I read to have escapism. There's lots of tragic endings in real life, so I like to read to escape that. And so when there are sad endings to stories, it's like a gut punch. And there are several stories that I really love that have sad endings, but they're more bittersweet than just sad. So I only hope that it's bittersweet when we get to it, but I'm not looking forward to that. And so one thing that is rather interesting is that Luca, we meet Luca and Jean, he makes this point of saying that you're not a burro anymore, you're my chevalier. And Luca makes the point of saying you're not to kill anyone anymore, which I found very fascinating, that Luca's like, you're not supposed to kill, you're my chevalier, you don't hurt people anymore. But then later on when Ruthven's with Jean, Ruthven's like, oh, you need to go kill Chloe, the Silver Witch. And so I find that fascinating that Luca is very against killing other vampires or other beings. And of course it makes sense because Luca's brother is a curse bearer and he's not dying. He's not being sought down and killed. So it would make sense for Luca to tell Jean that she's not to kill anybody anymore, because if she believes as a burro that that's her only job, one day she may turn and try to hurt Loki, which Luca doesn't want. So I thought that was very interesting. I liked that. And then of course we get the build up until Vanitas kisses Jean and kisses her to like subdue her and not use the weapon, right? The one thing that's fascinating is that you don't get to see his other arm, which has the glove that he's been bitten with, but you do get to see the side of his arm that like holds her head, and you can see some scars there. From early on, you see some scars there from Moreau's experiments. I like that subtle little foreshadowing that there's more to Vanitas there than we know of yet. I like that. I think it's very well done. I really appreciate those little details like that. So yeah, so that's pretty much the highlights of Volume 1 that we have. And so then Volume 2, I absolutely love the cover of Noe, and the shapeless one is holding him in his hands. The shapeless one that's in blue with the purple behind him. Again, I feel like the shapeless one is tied to the Blue Moon Vampire somehow, but we don't know how yet. We're not sure or certain, but there's a connection there. There has to be. So I'm going to be curious. There's a lot of mystery that this series builds up that it hasn't answered yet, so I'm curious to know more. But man, Noe has a great body. Noe is a very aesthetically pleasing designed character for sure, and the mangaka knows how to make everything look just right on Noe. Absolutely. But I love that usually the covers have double sides where you have one cover and then the second. Jean in this like bridal wear, looking absolutely beautiful with the golden lilies around them. Just gorgeous. I'm usually not a fan of female characters with short hair. I usually like long hair in female characters, but Jean pulls it off. Although Jean's long hair look that we see in the flashback with Chloe, top notch. But I do like Jean's short hair look. I think she's pretty either way. She has a very interesting character design. I wouldn't normally peg like a white-haired character, but her and Noe are both the white-haired characters in this, so why are we surprised? And then we go to a completely different look of like the purple gears, and it's kind of more of a goth look on her. And this look here, where she's got the black dress with the magenta trim, it feels very Soul Eater. I feel like she should join Maka and Soul in like the inner realm. I feel like that should happen with her character, but it's really pretty. It's a very pretty look for her for chapter 5. So yeah, there are little things here that are noticeable in the second volume. I like that we get little close-ups with Noe and how he sleeps with his little pillow, and he's in his cramped little space. But the thing that gets me is that Vanitas like just popping down being like, come on out, it's time for breakfast. Like, here's the thing. Up until Vanitas finds out that he's an archiviste, Vanitas is much more friendly and chummy with Noe, and he teases him a lot more because he doesn't see Noe as any type of threat to him, and he likes Noe, so he gets all aboard it, and he's like, oh, come on, I'm going to tease you and play with you, ha ha ha, kind of like what he does with Jean, right? Which kind of fuels the ship for both of their characters. And then we get Dami's introduction in all of this. And Dami, what I love about her character is, one, she enters framing herself as Noe's fiance, and he's like, no, that's not the case at all. Like, he immediately dismisses it. But also, she's very flirtatious with a lot of female characters. Dami is throughout these first 5 volumes. So I'm like, the people that are shipping her and Jean, your ship is not unfounded. I am on the Jean and Dami ship for sure, for reasons that I'll go on as we get deeper into the volume. But the thing about it is that we find a little bit more out about Noe around this point when Dami shows up. We find out that Noe loves the taste of blood as much as he likes tartatan. We learned that from Louis in a flashback, and that he likes drinking blood in general. That's why he drinks blood from Dami a lot, is because he's already seen her memories. He knows he can drink her blood, and it's just convenient, and he likes it. So, I mean, you can ship them based off of that, but to me, it was just kind of like, okay, no, he's just comfortable around her. He loves her as a sibling, as a friend, but not sexually or romantically. The other thing is, Vanitas immediately changes his tune about Noe when he realizes he's an Archiviste. When he realizes that Noe can see memories through drinking blood, Vanitas, it's just like a switch flips. Like, you see an instant, his expression changes, and he's like, nope. He's like, no, I'm not having that. And it's a great foreshadowing when we find out later on, towards the end of the season, that Luna doesn't want anyone to drink Vanitas's blood because he doesn't want, or they don't want anyone to see Vanitas's memories. So it's a nice little foreshadowing to that. And when we first started the series, I was like, oh, I don't understand why Vanitas is suddenly, like, Vanitas was really flirty and open with Noe the first couple episodes, and now he's instantly, like, cutting off from Noe. We find out it's because he knows that Noe can drink his blood and gain his memories, and that's Noe. And we also know that Vanitas has triggered himself to go into self-hypnosis if anyone tries to do that. So you know that it just adds another layer to it, that Vanitas is instantly like, oh crap, this person I like, if they try to drink my blood, I'm going to try to kill them. So I need a distance. It adds just so more to that relationship. And I'm like, okay, that makes more sense now. Right? We find out that Noe was an orphan and that he was auctioned off based on his background when the Shapeless One bought him. What's interesting is that in the flashback, Louis notes to Noe that it is bad luck for the Shapeless One to like him. He's like, oh, the Shapeless One favors you. That's bad luck. Like, anything following the Shapeless One is in a bad position. And I love that line being included in the manga because it instantly makes you more wary and more kind of suspicious of the Shapeless One. Like, you're his teacher, but is this fine? And that image when the Shapeless One, like, pops in with all of the vines and the darkness and everything looking absolutely terrifying. Yeah. So, lots of interesting comparisons to Ruthven with the black dust and everything. It's fascinating. But yeah. And so then another thing is that Noe, at the end of the conclusion after the Shapeless One saves him, he admits that the fact that he survived and the fact that he was relieved of being alive was absolutely abominable to him. He's like, the fact that even in a situation like this, I was relieved to be alive struck me as absolutely abominable. So he feels this survivor's guilt for feeling good that he was spared when he lost his best friend, and then his other best friend, Dami, was left in this horrible situation without a brother. And just that added characterization of seeing how much survivor's guilt Noe felt, it adds so much to his character and why he wants to understand Vanitas. And then later on, I'm assuming we get to like the latter volumes of this set, it's going to be like, okay, this is why Noe is like, oh, I get it. You're like me. You feel bad that you survived and you've been trying to save all these other people. So it's a nice little comparison. I like it a lot. It's great. It's a nice thing for it to include. And so we get the idea that we get the facts that Vanitas is 18, Noe is 19, Dami is 20, and Dante is 18. I love that fact being pointed out because the mangaka says in a little author's note, they say, yeah, every time that I bring up that Dante is only 18, people are surprised. They're like, I just kind of drew him, I guess, older than he actually is. It's great, but it's also like these characters are adults. They can do adult things now. Technically, they're not minors. So that's good to know. But yeah, I liked that was included there. And then, of course, we have the whole parade of Charlatan. I like that Charlatan in the manga, it is clarified that Charlatan is the group Nania is the leader, but Nania is the curse bearer. But the group, the parade itself is just called Charlatan. I was struggling with that in the anime because I kept thinking Charlatan was the name of a specific curse bearer. In the manga, it's not. It's just the parade itself is called Charlatan. And that's, Nania is just the leader of it. But I love this double spread of Vanitas saving Noe and Noe clutching his heart. It's absolutely wonderful. And Noe feeling bad because they realize that Nania is responsible for Louis's death. And Noe doesn't want anyone else to die because of him. Love it. That whole flashback was pretty much like the manga or the anime. It was great. Very great. But then we have Volume 3. Volume 3's cover, I love this cover. I love them in the water. And you have like the red, you see the red like blood from Jean on his neck there. But then there's also some purple there. That's some like purple blood on the side there too. So I don't know if that's foreshadowing that Noe is eventually going to drink his blood, because there's like purple blood on one side and red on the other. So I'm like, is Noe eventually going to drink his blood? Because then you have on his arm, you see the Blue Moon vampire's mark. So I think that's foreshadowing. I think that Noe is going to drink his blood. We just aren't there yet in the story. But we'll see, right? I also love the alternate cover with Dami there when the purple with the little machine that blows petals and Murs beside her. I think that's super cute. I love her gloves. I love her design. Dami just looks super, super cute. But Volume 3, bring it up here. We also get this amazing double spread of Noe and Vanitas on this couch. I love it. I love that Noe is just, it's, in any vampire story, there's automatically this kind of like sexual tension, right? There's automatically this like sexual tension in vampire stories. And so I love the idea of Noe just sprawled out here on the couch in a very like sexual position, and Vanitas is just beside him. The funny thing is Noe is extremely innocent and would probably not think anything of this position, right? But I love it. I love the idea of like the belt around his leg, everything, the fashion, it just looks very, very good. So in my notes, I like the idea that we have the confrontation on the rooftop, right, between Noe and Vanitas. And the way that the expressions are drawn is so good throughout this. But I love the idea that Noe decides they want to understand Vanitas and his bitter personality. I think a lot of people that don't want to ship Vanitas and Noe, when they hear Noe say, I don't like you, they're like, oh, well, that's proof that they're just friends. It's platonic, whatever. But reading between the lines, Noe is like, I don't like your personality because you're bitter, you're a jerk. He's like, I don't get it. He's like, I don't like it that you push people away, because Noe's personality is not pushing away. It's Noe brings people together to him because he's an extrovert and he wants people around him, wants friends. And that gets explained a little later in the narrative. But for Vanitas is like an introvert. He does not want people around. And he especially doesn't want people around when he thinks he could be the cause of them getting hurt. So Noe deciding, he's like, I want to understand why you're like this. Like, I don't like your personality or how you're doing things, but I want to understand. So then we get the big double spread saying, I've decided I'm staying with you, Vanitas. And I just love him smiling there, being like, I'm not going to let you go. I'm going to be with you. It's so cute, right? It's so, so cute. And what I love about it is just Vanitas' expression there, where he's like, and he doesn't have anything to say to it. And so he's just like, okay. It's so good. Like that expression there, I'm like, that is a shippable moment. That is a shippable moment where Vanitas is like, I guess, sure, I'll let you come with me. Okay. Try to understand me. Because it's not saying that he loves him. It's not saying that he likes him. Because Vanitas doesn't believe that he's worth love. And he doesn't believe that he's worth people liking. But Noe is not saying that. Noe is saying, I'm not loving you. I'm not like in love with you, but I want to understand you. So it's on a different level, right? The thing that sucks that I forgot from the anime is that at this point, we have Noe writing with the pen, and he says, all too easily, the memories of the beginning summon memories of the end. The things that slipped through my fingers, the people I couldn't protect, the regrets of that day when I didn't grab your hand. And it almost looks like there's a little mark on Noe's arm. You can't quite see it. And so I'm curious. I think that the day he couldn't grab Vanitas' hand is when Ruthven tells him the oath that he has to swear to abide by. And I think Ruthven's going to tell him not to grab his hand, and Noe won't have a choice but to not do it. So the question is going to be, though, is this going to be a situation like I've seen in some other series? Is it going to be a situation where, as Noe is writing this letter, he believes that Vanitas is dead, that because of his oath to Ruthven, he let him die, and that he killed him basically with his two hands? Is that going to be the case? And then at the end of the story, is Vanitas going to be like, surprise, bitch, I lived? Like one of those scenarios. I would love that. That would be fine with me. I'm rooting for it. But again, I don't know if that's going to be the ending that we get. But it's still really sad. And then we like immediately cut to, what on earth is love? What's love got to do with it? And we see them like dancing here in this beautiful double spread for chapter 12. And I love that Vanitas' face was being like, excuse me, what? I love this chapter so much. Chapter 12 is one of my favorites. It's just really, really good. And we got back with the whole thing with the Tartatan, with the thing about Jean, and the whole thing about Vanitas like being in love with her, and all of this. And then Luca, I love Luca in this double spread where in this 2 pages where he's like, oh, is Vanitas the type of person that you like? And Jean's like, no, I didn't mean to claim him. And I like that Noe's just kind of eating like, what is this conversation we're having? And Vanitas' expression of like, oh, well, I took the joke too far. She left this mark, but not because she wished to. And I love Luca's like, you mean you forced her to do it? And he's like, no. He's like, she wasn't in her right mind. It was the curse bearer's voice that propelled her into that action, right? And I love that instantly Luca is like totally fine after that. He's like, oh, okay, we're good then. But yeah, it's Vanitas. I do love the interactions between Jean and Vanitas a lot. And I mean, I could definitely see that Vanitas loves her in a certain regard, but I also can see how he loves Noe and Noe loves him. So Noe definitely loves Vanitas and not Jean or Dami. Let's get that clear. Noe is definitely like, I love Vanitas. Now, if you told me Vanitas loved both Jean and Noe, would totally believe it. But this page here where Jean takes him away to be like, okay, what are the conditions of me just drinking your blood? And the face that Vanitas makes where he's like, I have 2 conditions. Like, she's like, what? Like, that face is such a gremlin face. I love that expression. It's terrifying, but it fits the moment, right? And then they go through the whole thing with him and Jean, and we cut back to Noe where he's like, I have no interest in the sort of person who would fall for me. Because he doesn't know why. He's like, why would you fall for me? Why would you in any way, shape, or form like me? And the thing about it is that Noe just looking at Vanitas being like, I don't understand him. I don't know why he's like that. And I'm assuming by the time we get to Mihail's battle with the 2 of them, or rather Mihail watching them 2 battle, then we'll get to Noe understanding him, being like, oh, you don't think that you're worthy of love. But it's so bittersweet because Noe clearly is like, I want to get to know him and understand him. And then, he's looking around and you see Dami and Jean dancing and they're like, and look, Jean is blushing dancing with Dami. Jean totally has the hots for Dami. You can't convince me otherwise. And poor Luca, I feel for Luca because he just wants to be old enough to express his love for Jean. All these vampires and their problems with love. Damn it. And then Noe says, I would not truly understand the meaning of the stirring I felt in my heart until quite some time later. He falls in love with Vanitas. At that point, reading that line, I was like, he steps on his foot and he's like, oh, sorry. He steps on Vanitas's foot. But that line there, oh, the shipper in me reading that was like, oh, nope. Noe's going to fall in love with Vanitas. We're going to get this stirring in his heart. Yes, I just, that's where I was reading that. I was like, yes, please. But what I love about this series is that the relationships that are developed, this is very much a romance story. I like Case Study of Vanitas because of all the romance angles of it. It's really nice in that regard. But what I love about it is that the relationships are not all sexual or not all romantic relationships. But you have relationships like friendship relationships. You have relationships that are of like siblings. And so I really love the relationship between Noe and Dami, where he's like this panel here where he says, you always worry about me and it makes me happy, you know, that you worry about me, that you're concerned. He's like, I really like that and appreciate it. Right? And Dami, bless her heart, she likes Noe too, and she's just like, you big dummy, you don't get it. Right? I think Dominique knows that even if she loves Noe, he's not going to love her back that way. He's always going to view her like a friend or a sibling, and she's like, fine, then I'll still protect you, whatever. It gives me Angelica vibes from Hamilton, is Dami, literally. It's just Dami has Angelica vibes from Hamilton all the time. You will never be satisfied. So we go through the storyline of them all going together, Vanitas and Noe getting their chasseur outfits on and going in to investigate, and Vanitas is doing it to find Moreau. But the idea, I love the way that the expressions are done when the two of them are backed up in the hallway as the chasseurs are after them. And this is after we meet Roland, which we'll get some panels of Roland in here. Roland's great. Roland's very similar in the manga to the anime, in a good way. But I love this panel here where Noe is like, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to do it together. And Vanitas just kind of laughs at him like, okay. Because Vanitas is not used to having someone like Noe around that wants to work with him like that. And it's just the way that Vanitas' expression is, I love it. It's so good, right? It's so good. So the reason why I ship Jean and Dami, going back to that, are there little extras planted throughout the manga, and volume 3 has like the first major one, and there's like little extras, and this one extra is called Heartwarming Girls, and it's right after chapter 12. And so it's like Dami telling Jean, like, I really enjoyed today, Jean. If you don't mind, I'd love to have fun together sometime too. And Jean's like, okay. Which Jean's had a thing for Chloe, has a thing for Dami. I mean, you know. And then it shows Jean following Dami around constantly, looking at her. And Dami's like, has she taken a liking to me? And she's pleased about it. Dami is pleased about the fact that Jean's taking a liking to her. And I'm like, yes, give me this Dominique and Jean ship, please. I'm here for it. But yeah, so to me, it's a thing. It is a thing, y'all. So that leads us to volume 4, which has a very beautiful cover of Jean on it. It's absolutely, I love all the pinks. I love that Jean, you have Noe in the purple, Vanitas in the blue, you have Jean in the pinks. The gold kind of can go for the vines around her arm there, look kind of like the shapeless ones, which are interesting. But I do love the way that she is drawn there. Although it's very like submissive dominatrix posing with Vanitas there. So get your minds out of the gutter. Now, I told y'all I would not leave Roland out. Roland here, I love the way that he's drawn. I love that the mangaka says they keep drawing Roland's hair fluffier and his body more built. They're just making it more of a beefcake and fluffier haired as the series goes on, and I'm here for it. It's great. But I like the green color spotting with Roland. Roland's colors are green. I like the color spotting to match his eyes. It's a very pretty pose of him. He's got like all the Kingdom Hearts belts on his boots, which are nice. And then, yeah, the chapter 16, the first viewing we get of the Blue Moon Vampire with the little crystal and everything. My theory is that Luna, the Blue Moon Vampire here, my theory is that they are the little vampire that was in the beginning of the storybook, that is the same vampire, but that they've just grown up. I feel like that's the case. And they just have like the black skin and the nails and everything. I like this composition of this double spread because it shows that Vanitas, for as much as they say they hate the Blue Moon Vampire, it shows they very much are complacent with being close to them like this. Like they don't look like they're struggling. They don't look like they're angry. They just look sad, which is saying something about their relationship that we find out later on. So yeah, I like that we go back to this idea of Noe trying to understand Vanitas, and Vanitas explains, he explains that his family was killed by vampires. And Noe is like, you don't hate vampires, do you? And that's when Vanitas says there's no difference between humans and vampires. They're all ugly, endlessly selfish creatures. And that's when, of course, Noé gets mad because he's like, I'm tired of you making this face. I'm tired of you acting like the world is a terrible place, etc., etc. And he gets upset about it, right? So then they have the battle with Roland. They connect back up to him. It's very much like the anime. I do love that Noé is like, I just want to talk one-on-one and understand you better, Roland, and understand what's going on. He's like, I just wanted us to be friends and come to an understanding. And they explain their situation, and I love this panel where Roland's like, why didn't you just say so in the first place? I love their reactions. The great thing about this manga is it's beautifully drawn, but the chibis, just like in the anime, there's moments with these little chibi faces that I'm like, yes, please. I absolutely love it. It's great. And then, of course, we go to Moreau's lab, and Vanitas acts all nice, like everything's fine, puts on the face, but then Noé realizes something is wrong. Vanitas is not good. This is not going well. And I love the idea of when he stops Moreau here, and Vanitas is like, what are you doing, Noé? And he's like, I can't stand it. Quit referring people as numbers. Vanitas should love him. Absolutely should love him. But you know, he can't because he's all self-loathing, right? He doesn't want to let himself love. And I love that as soon as, like, Noé, like, just slams Moreau away and he goes to pick up Vanitas, Vanitas makes this face, like, and Noé's like, what kind of face is that? I don't understand. Like, what's this face you're making? And it's a face of, like, Vanitas, like, showing his vulnerability and showing who he really is for the first time to Noé. And Noé gets to see that side of him. Because I mean, Jean will get to see it in the cabin later, but Noé and Jean are like the only ones who have seen this side of him. And then we have the like mock vampire come out of hiding that was like the mouth that was endless and all the hands and everything. And so I remember that during that time in the episode, Vanitas looked at the book and called it Luna, which was relating to the Blue Moon Vampire. And so we get this little flashback, and the flashback is actually of Luna showing Mihail the book and explaining what the Malnomen that they have met in Moreau's lab is actually called and what it does. And the funny thing is you see Vanitas kind of standing off to the side, listening to what the Blue Moon Vampire is saying, but not wanting to be seen, listening. Like they're actually paying attention, but they don't want to let on that they're paying attention, right? They want to seem like they're not listening, but it's like, no, they are. They are. So we get like little hints of Mihail from the beginning, right? And then we also get hints of Mihail, like more than just the anime, where Mihail's asking Vanitas why he's doing this. And he asks him, why are you trying to save the vampires of the Red Moon who shunned an exiled father so desperately that you get hurt like that? And you're too late. You should hurry up and tell those people. That way no one else will have to get hurt for no reason. So we stated at the beginning of the manga that all of the Crimson Vampires seem to have a curse on them. Or the thing of it could be that they're all going to eventually become curse bearers. Maybe that's the case. And Mihail's like, you might as well tell them. And Vanitas is like, no, you don't want someone to die because of you again, do you? And that foreshadowing, the idea that Vanitas, who tried with Moreau's experiments to not let any of the other test subjects die, who sacrificed himself over and over again, we find out later on he believes that he's the reason that Mihail died, even though he ended up not dying. And he also believes that he's the reason why the Blue Moon Vampire is no longer there. And so there's this like survivor's guilt that he has, and this memory inside of his head just exacerbates that, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. But then I love that Noé is there and is like, no, we can't give up yet. I love that Noé is this shining beacon, this light for Vanitas. It's beautiful. And Vanitas doesn't know what to do with that light, right? I like that both Noé and Jean, at different points in these first 5 volumes, at both points, they both go up to Vanitas and they convince him to keep going, and they convince him of certain things about himself that he's trying to deny. I love it. Like, yes, please. That's great. It's a beautiful double spread. I really, really like it. And so then, yeah. And so then Noé, he's like, why are you even here right now, even though you had to go through so much pain to get here? I like that Noé kind of calls him out, and he's like, He's like, why are you here? You just gonna give up? Like, didn't you come here to do something? Like, and Noe doesn't even realize that he's really doing it. And then Vanitas is like, yes, why are you doing this? I'm a doctor and I'm here to save vampires. Mm-hmm. It's such a great double spread. It's so good. I love it an awful lot. And then when they go in to the monster's mouth, Noe's like, we can do this together. And just look at the expressions between them. Look at that. I'm like, you expect me not to ship them when they look at each other like this and have this banter and conversations amongst each other? I mean, I know that Jean and Vanitas have intimate moments together, and you can definitely ship them based on that, but it's shippable here too. So I'm like, it's just ships everywhere in the Case Study of Vanitas, right? And they go through everything, and I love that for these two, their like end of the battle ritual is just faces back to back. They're just back to back to one another, and the thing that sucks about this moment is I wanted Noe to question Vanitas more, but we don't get it. We don't get those answers, right? Just doesn't happen. So we also learn in volume 4, something that is worth noting is that we do learn that Noe has we learned that early on Moreau had been trying to create his own vampires. That is mentioned in volume 4 of the manga, which I think is pretty good to note, that it was revealed kind of earlier on that he's been trying to create vampires. That's going to come back up with Vanitas and Mihail later, but it's mentioned. Also, we find out that Noe has been very, very sheltered. When they're fighting Roland, it's revealed that Noe has been very sheltered. He doesn't have many friends, so he's instantly like friendly with everybody. He literally had Louis and Dami, and that was all the Shapeless One let him come in contact with. So yeah, Noe is very rich, does not have a lot of experience with friends. And so again, that helps to explain why... It explains why Noe feels so confused by Vanitas, because he's never met anybody like him before, and he's hard to understand. And then Noe kind of like laments and wonders if the one who wants to be saved more than anyone else is Vanitas himself, which is, yes, Vanitas wants salvation for everything that's happened to him, and he doesn't know how that's going to come about, and neither do we, the audience. But Noe's like, I wonder what that's like. We do get this very interesting page with Ruthven, where before we get into Ruthven's whole thing with Noe, we get this interesting backstory page with Ruthven where he talks about black smoke obstructing his vision and all these corpses, and he says he hears the faint voices of precious children begging for aid, calling his name. I like that we get more with Ruthven and the idea that he's not just some villain that's villainous for villain's sake, that he does have a motivation behind everything. That's good to note. I'm excited when we get to volumes 6 through 10, seeing him interact with Chloe and seeing if we get more about that. That would be interesting. But yeah, so we find out some stuff about the Shapeless One. We find out a lot of things, mainly that Ruthven and Machina, who are revealed to be kind of in cahoots in volume 4, they don't know a lot about the Shapeless One. But we get some information about the Shapeless One, which is rather interesting. And that is the idea that he was the first vampire to serve Her Majesty the Queen and stay by her side, and did so for the longest. And if the Queen is the first Crimson vampire, and we have the Shapeless One be one of the 2 first vampires, that means they probably know the Bloomin' Vampire, which I'm very curious about. They don't know a lot about him. And then Ruthven says he doesn't take any sort of important post. He fostered the title and territory he received from Her Majesty and on to his adopted child, and life of leisure in the country without troubling himself over work. So he adopted a kid. So Dami and Louis are not blood related to him. They're not biologically related to the Shapeless One. They're just the children of the kid that he adopted. So there's that. That explains a lot of why, because when you question why Louis, I'm like, why would your grandfather be so on board with using you as like experimental research material? Well, he's not his actual grandson, so that's why. It almost seems like he adopted a kid out of pretense, and then Dami and Louis are the kids of that child that he adopted out of pretense. So it gave a little bit more explanation there. And then Ruthven says he changes his name and shape at the drop of a hat. But if anyone calls him by the wrong name, he beats them within an inch of their life on the spot. He's a thundering nuisance. So not only is he a shapeshifter, which is a thing, but he also changes his name constantly. And if you call him by the wrong name, he gets really mad. And Noe's kind of like, oh, I'm starting to feel bad about my teacher. And it's like, you probably should. So I thought that was interesting, giving a little bit of foreshadowing with the arc that we'll see later on with the shapeless one. I thought that was really, really interesting. And then, of course, Ruthven bites Noe and sucks his blood when Noe says that he is neither on vampires or humanity's side. He thinks that they're both fine. It's just anybody that tries to hurt his loved ones are a threat, which is kind of what Ruthven's philosophy was. So I think that's one of the reasons Ruthven didn't kill him, is because he sees a lot of himself in Noe. But God, this page hurt, because it's like, then he goes through the whole motion of having him swear an oath. He's like, I don't know what the shapeless one would do if we kill this Archiviste. He's like, he's just a child. We can get rid of him whenever. He's like, I have high hopes when the time comes to remember that oath. Oh, I hate it. I hate it, because I'm like, he's going to use that damn oath to kill Vanitas, and not a fan. Personally, not a fan. Meanwhile, I love that we get Jean and Vanitas' date. It's absolutely hilarious. I love this frame of Dami and Dante being like, oh my God, she's a pushover. And that's the thing too. The other thing about her and Vanitas as a ship is that they acknowledge her. They're like, the Hellfire Witch over there is terribly weak against any sort of kindness. So anytime someone's nice to her genuinely, she doesn't know how to react, because we find out she's been raised as a burro her whole life and has been denied kindness. So of course she would react to it. And Dami's like, oh my God, we should have seen this coming. She got into, holding in got too hard. Oh my God. Like, what's wrong with you people? So yeah, so that's the other thing. By the end of the season, I was like, okay, I definitely am rooting for Vanitas and Noe, because their relationship has this kind of deep layers to it and has all of this like symbolism and all of this like trying to understand one another, and it seems like you can go in a lot of places with it. Jean and Vanitas, I like them as a ship. I would be lying if I didn't say that their moments are super cute, they're romantic, they're really nice, but it's all very kind of like surface level a little bit. I think the most that it gets beyond the surface is when Vanitas is like, if you get to the point where you could hurt Luca, I will kill you. I think when we get to that point, it gets a little bit deeper, and in the cabin it gets a little bit deeper, but it's still very much like the fact that they admit here that the mangaka is saying, yeah, Jean's like really instantly, weak-minded to any type of, kindness towards her, is kind of like, yeah, she had no chance. But again, we do get to the point where she's like, I don't want to hurt people, and I don't especially want to hurt people that I care about. And I love the way Vanitas is positioned there, like where he's kind of like leaning over, and he's like, if that time comes, I'll promise that I'll kill you if it gets to that point where you could hurt someone you love. And I feel like the thing of it is that Vanitas sees some of himself in Jean in that moment, because Vanitas is like, yeah, I know what that feels like to not want someone you love being hurt, to the point where you would sacrifice yourself to save that person, right? And it's this big triangle, right? Because Vanitas says, if Jean gets to the point where she's going to hurt someone, I'm going to kill her. And then Mihail's like, well, but what happens if you get to the point where you're going to kill somebody yourself? And that's when Vanitas says to Mihail, that's when Noe's going to kill me. So it's like this triangle. He's like, Jean, don't worry. If you get to the point where you're not in control anymore, I'll kill you to keep you from hurting people you care about. And he tells Noe, if I get to the point where I'm going to hurt somebody, I'm going to need you to do it, because I trust you. And because there's a love there. So there's a love that's like, it's like a triangle of love. Jean and Vanitas and Noe are like, if anything happens and we get out of control, we're gonna end it for each other so that we don't hurt the people we care about. All Shakespearean-like and everything, right? But it's why I kind of ship them all together, right? I love that. The biggest change The biggest change in volume 4 is that Mihail shows up. Just pops right in. Just shows up. We had that episode cut off where Dami left the date and we didn't get to see anything more, and we didn't find out until later that Mihail ran into her. No, here. She meets him here and she notices he has the same eyes as Vanitas. He's like, Mihail's my name, but you can call me Misha, mademoiselle. Yeah, so getting that early is just like, it's insane, right? It's insane. So then we have volume 5, which is the last volume that I've looked at. I love the color of the cover. We have like the red there, like you have the blues of Vanitas Noé, but then you have the green there that's at the top. You have the beast of Gavaudan that's there, and then you have the red from Astolfo's weapon that's over Vanitas as well. It's a really good cover. I like the way that it's symbolically done. It looks very good. The color spotting is really great in it as well. And then speaking of Astolfo, we get this next cover where it shows Noé walking past Astolfo as they go separate ways, and Murs looking back at Astolfo as they cross paths. Right? It's great. So my question throughout volume 5 was if Ruthven, as we got into volume 5, my question was if Ruthven's powers harken back maybe to the original vampires, because there's this idea that the people that get bit by Ruthven, their bloodlust seems to increase. Like we have Jean as well as Noé, their like need for blood kind of increases after being bit by Ruthven. And so I wondered if that bloodlust was something that harkened back to maybe Ruthven being one of the original vampires. I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit more, right? And we find out the Damirs, which are Johann, Richie, and Dante, that they, being half vampire, half human, are kind of this neutral party. They're not really siding with either side. They're just here for intel and money. They're just here for themselves. Gonna say, this is my favorite cover spread of all 5 volumes. I honestly am probably going to make this my background on my computer. I freaking love it. Chapter 22, Roland in the green with Noé and Vanitas. Noé being like, I have a friend. And Vanitas being like, I hate this. And then the 3 Damirs being like, oh my, look at them together. Look at Roland being a matchmaker. I freaking love this cover. The colors are beautiful. It's everything to me. It has the triangles from Sasaki and Miyano coming out of it. I was trying to think of where that's from. It was like that little confetti effect look. I've seen that in a BL before. It's Sasaki and Miyano where I've seen that from, which is in fact a BL. So I'm like, and we see triangles like that in Given, which is another BL. So I'm like, keep doing it, mangaka. Keep shipping it for me. I'm here for it. But I freaking love that cover spread. It's great. Love it to pieces. And we get Roland and Olivier moments together where the mangaka explains that they were childhood friends. They've known each other for a long time, so they are very like informal around each other, especially Roland to Olivier. But I just love how buff they make Roland. They make Roland like a buff man and like have a strong jaw and everything with the floofy hair. Olivier, you had no chance. No chance at all, right? So we go back and get a little bit of flashback information from the Shapeless One to Noé, which I think is very interesting. When Noé is having this like bloodlust towards Vanitas at the beginning of the chapter, we go back in the past and we learn a little bit about vampires born from Babel don't drink blood because they want the blood itself. They do it to take energy from others' body through the medium of blood, which makes me wonder if Ruthven's one of the original vampires from Babel, because we know that Noé and Louis and them are kind of children of vampires. So it's kind of like the bloodline disseminates a little bit, right? It says during the war, blood was drunk everywhere to gain strength or to heal wounds, but these days it's an indulgence like liquor or tobacco. You can live without it, but there are those who are fond of it, and it's an enchanting, irreplaceable thing. So the Shapeless One talks about how you can actually get an addiction to it. They call it like hemophagic dependence, right? It's like you get the addiction to pleasure caused by the act of drinking blood. So that could be something that Jean has and doesn't realize it. It could be something brought on by Ruthven. We don't know for sure. But I like the Shapeless One gives us some explanations in this moment. And he says there are those that don't even like the taste of blood, even though they're vampires. And I'm like, And Noé says, well, I like drinking blood. It tastes good. And he's like, oh, I know. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, Noé is just like, well, I like drinking blood, but you're a vampire with a rather unique power. You have to exercise more caution than those around you. And so he's like, and that's when Louis says, you have to, get consent, right? Drinking blood is a type of communication. So if you want to drink from someone, you have to sweet talk them before you take it from them. And Louis was thinking of Dami at the time. But then, Noé tries to sweet talk Vanitas, and it's just like, Vanitas is like, what are you doing? And that's when Vanitas is like, excuse me? And at that moment, at the time, I was wondering if Vanitas was figuring out that Noé had been messed with by Ruthven or somebody. But in reality, what it is that Vanitas is saying, oh, you're wanting to drink my blood. That's a bad thing because I have it installed in my system that if anybody tries to drink my blood, I have self-hypnosised myself to try to kill you. So don't do it. Don't make me try to kill you. And the way that Vanitas is like looking in that moment is like, are we clear? And Noé takes it to be like, oh no, I embarrassed myself by asking Vanitas to drink his blood. I shouldn't have done that. But the reality is that Vanitas is like, I don't want to hurt you. I care about you. I don't want to hurt you. Please don't. Right? And Noé thinks he's done something wrong. And he goes back to thinking like, he's like going back to somebody that he drank blood from and that called him creepy for drinking his blood without consent. And so it makes more sense now. I know he's all like grumpy and like just being like a big sourpuss around Vanitas. Vanitas is like, what the fudge? Like that all makes more sense where he's like, you're being a sourpuss around me. I love how the manga draws it of just Vanitas being like, quit being such a spoil sport. He's like, what are you doing? And so they explain each other, and that's when Vanitas says, do you get memories no matter what type of blood and what state it's in you drink? And he says, no. He's like, if I'm not drinking it directly, I can't go into their memories. Sometimes I can get emotions from blood in other states, but it's rare. And that's when Vanitas is like, oh. And it kind of like eases the tension. He's like, oh, so if you lick blood off my coat, you'll be fine. Well, you can do that. And he's like, really? And he's like, no. And then Vanitas like goes back to normal because he's like, okay, crisis averted. As long as you don't directly drink from me, we're fine. So yeah, I thought that was handled really well in the manga. I liked it. One thing too that is expanded on in volume 5 is that we get to see more with Astolfo right off the bat. We get to see Astolfo with the guy, the butler beside him that looks like a chasseur, and he says he's looking forward to the beast of Gévaudan. All the vampires make their den in that region. We chasseurs will hunt them to extinction. I do like that the anime holds back and doesn't reveal that as soon as the manga. The manga reveals it like instantly as soon as we meet Astolfo. And I like that we don't quite find out he's a chasseur or any of that until a little bit later on, right? And so then we have Noé on the train being sleepy. And Vanitas is like, why didn't you sleep? And he's like, well, I thought you would sneak off without waking me. So he's like, that's why I didn't sleep. And he's like, you're not going to disappear while I'm asleep, will you? And I like that Vanitas is like, no. I like that Vanitas doesn't want to admit that he's not going to leave Noé, right? So then, yeah, we get more with Astolfo in the chapter. We get him when they get off the train. He says, if you call me captain here, we'll stand out, so don't do that. And he's like, I'm very sorry, Astolfo. And so, yeah, so we find out Astolfo is a chasseur. We see under his scarf. We see that he's a captain. We get all that rather early on, which is fine, but I do like that the anime leaves a little bit of that to the imagination until we full-on officially meet him against Noé and Vanitas. We also get hints at Chloe. We get to see a little preview of her. And we also get to see a preview of Jean with her beautiful long hair. So I love that it's like the blackout of this page and like the white of the snow. It's a nice little foreshadowing of what's to come. It's done very, very well. As is the beast. The beast and how big it is. Like we see the 3 eyes. You almost don't even realize they're eyes when you look at the panel of Vanitas being like, oh shit. Like you don't even notice it at first that it's a beast. It looks so otherworldly. It's done really, really well. I kept thinking of Sin City when I was looking at that. I thought that was great. And so let me get the back part of the rest of volume 15. So yeah, so we have Astolfo. He shows up to battle Noe. It's great. I honestly, this manga does a really good job with the action panels. I actually reading volumes 1 through 5. I really like the way the action's done. It's very shonen. It's really good. And I like the expressions during the battle as well. It's just handled great. And then I especially like Vanitas' face when Jean like kicks away the monster, like her leg goes up and she like their thigh high socks and armor, and Vanitas is like, oh, it's Jean. I love how Vanitas' eyes get so sparkly when he sees Jean. It's super, super cute. I love it. And she's on a mission to kill Chloe. So most of the rest of these pictures are from the cabin scene where we see her like going into the cabin, and Vanitas is like, that brat, I'll kill him dead next time. And he's talking about Astolfo and the fact that his book has been stolen. And Jean's like, all right, we're going to warm up. And she's like, take off your clothes. And I love, he's like, quoi? Vanitas like, wait, what? No, I don't want to do that. But we get hints at his body being scarred. I like the fact that the mangaka draws their bodies so proportionate, and they're not just like scrawny or skinny. They like have some meat on their bones. And then Jean's expression when she sees how scarred his body is it's something. And he's like, don't take that glove off. He like doesn't want to see the mark, right? And she's like, very well. And so then they both like get next to the fire just to keep warm in this moment, right? And then during this time, Jean admits that she couldn't kill Chloe, and that she's not going to make the same mistake twice. For this time, I'll surely kill them. And that's when Vanitas says, is that really what you want truly? And Vanitas is a fever at this point, right? What I love about it is that they're both like next to each other with the blanket, but it's almost like there's a little bit of a separation between them. But I love that Vanitas in this moment sees in Jean being like, do you really want to kill Chloe? Or are you just saying that? Because he does that quite a bit, right? Where he doesn't really want to kill somebody that he says he does. And so he starts to pass out, and that's when Vanitas says, it's not as if you actually hate her, right? And so then Jean gets up to go get him some water, and that's when Vanitas says, yes, I didn't actually hate. No, I didn't. Lou. And the thing about it is, he was saying Luna. He doesn't actually hate the Blue Moon Vampire. He's mad that the Blue Moon Vampire is dead, and he's mad that it was because of him, and that he had to be willing to deal the finishing blow, but he doesn't hate Luna. And that's his admission. And so, meanwhile, Jean is like, I don't know who this Lou person is, but you need to drink this water or you'll get dehydrated. And Vanitas is like, well, you want to kill the beast and I want to save it. We're enemies. We have different goals. We're enemies now. Killing me here would be a better idea. And I love that Jean's like, you're dying because you shielded me. How could I do something like that? And that's when Vanitas compares her and Noe, saying you guys are all chivalrous like that, and he just, he's like, how can you be like this? And that's when she's like, no, if you want to kill me, then rest up and then kill me. And then he says, what does it say? It says like he's jealous. See, that's the thing. He says, oh, are you jealous of Noe? Mm-hmm. So yeah, and that's when she ends up kissing him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like Vanitas knows exactly what he's saying, and regardless of whether he thinks that she's jealous of Noe or not, I don't think Jean is jealous of Noe. I don't think she likes Vanitas the way that Noe and Jean like Vanitas in different capacities in different ways, which is fine. The whole cabin scene is beautifully romantic. I love the shot of them kissing by the fire, and I love it. And I honestly, if the season had pursued her and Jean and Vanitas being in a relationship, I'd have been fine with it. But the fact of the matter is that, and we'll see how it is with volume 6 through 10. I haven't read those yet, so we'll see how that goes. But the fact of the matter is that once we get to the final battle between Jean and Noe, or Vanitas and Noe, Jean kind of is more concerned with Dami and not so much with Vanitas. So I don't know, but I do like this moment a lot. And then the last image that I had was this undercover project with Amelia. What Amelia saw. And it's just, she's like, ooh la la, like she's been, the hidden facts of the characters revealed, like she's been looking behind the scenes at the characters. So there's this spread here where she says, from time to time, a pair of siblings who are just passing watch Mur from the outside. Since they're here, they ought to come in. So I find that interesting. I don't know who these siblings are and why they're staring at Mur and why they don't interact with them. I don't know. But anyway, we see Noé sleeping with Mur, and Mur's not happy about it. We see that Mur is currently smitten with Hotel Shosho's black cat, Flute. Flute doesn't take him seriously and brushes him off. I don't know what that means. And then we have Monsieur Noé bought another baffling knickknack. It's the one from the OP. Where does he find them? He looks very happy, though, and somehow that made me happy. Still, his tastes are, Then it says, I thought things had gotten rather noisy, and it turns out Monsieur Vanitas and Monsieur Noé were fighting. Apparently, while Monsieur Vanitas was out, Noé had taken over his bed with his personal affects. Yes, Monsieur Noé, that probably wasn't a good thing to do. Oh my God. So he's like, get your stuff out of my bed. Yes. When I went to do some shopping, I spotted Monsieur Vanitas eating a giant pile of oysters. I'd taken him for a light eater, so it surprised me. Does he like oysters? But Monsieur Noé, upon first encountering oysters, made this face. He's like, who can eat those? Yeah, because oysters are really slimy and kind of salty. Not sweet. They're also kind of an aphrodisiac, so do that with what you will. But I also really like the idea that she says, today, unusually, Monsieur Vanitas and Noé ate in a hotel dining room together. Did that earlier argument get sorted out? Yes, it did. Yes. I love it. Monsieur Vanitas wouldn't accept a token of gratitude in return for taking care of me. I wonder where he gets his income. He doesn't seem to be troubled by money, does he? I feel like maybe the Bloomin' Vampire had a source of income stocked up, and that's where they got their money from. I guess maybe we'll find out in the next set of volumes. But I really love the artwork and the shipping and everything with volumes 1 through 5 of the Case Study of Vanitas. I thought it was really, really good. I'm glad that I have them. I definitely will be going back and reading them because the artwork's just so good. But it was a pretty faithful adaptation to the anime. I'm going to be curious to see what all changes from the from the manga to the anime in the next set. I've heard that there's a bit more change, so I'm excited for that. But I'm also excited to hear your comments down below. What you guys, if you guys are manga readers, what you thought of the first 5 volumes, what you guys thought of the stuff pointed out in this that were different, things like that. But I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm glad to recap this first cour in manga form. And so now it's going to be the battle of doing it with the second cour when we get to it. So yay. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with volumes 6 through 10 of the Case Study of Vanitas. Bye.